evening to you and welcome to Primetime Advocacy. On Primetime Advocacy, here we look at issues that affect the people and advocate for relevant solution. We have professionals coming here to give their inputs, and of course, on tonight's show, Nnamdi cessation issue. Nnamdi Kanu slammed with fresh terrorism charges, and that was yesterday, and of course, that was barely 24 hours to his court hearing today. Now the question is, what was the outcome of that court hearing? What exactly is the issue, reason for that? And our second story today, we'll be looking at Human Rights Watch. Underage marriage violates girls' rights. That's the Human Rights Watch article that did elucidate on the issues of underage girls' marriage. And I'll be having with this conversation with Barrister Gifts Awabo. He's a Port Harcourt-based human rights lawyer and an environmental activist. But what's the story about? The Human Rights Watch on underage marriage and issues that surround it. The truth is that the abuse of human rights is unfortunately the bane in the Buhari-led government. From NSA's abuse of military forces against young Nigerians, the consistent abuse of power by the Buhari government. Sadly, he does not care whose ox is God. For a country bedeviled by hues and cries of cessation from west to east, one would expect the Buhari-led government to err on the side of caution this time, especially with how intense that the IPOB guys have been. By now, by trading peacefully. Alas, the reverse is the case. While the Southeast burns over the arrest and continued detention of Nnamdi Kanu, Mr. President files a fresh lawsuit against him, barely few hours to his court appearance. With this fresh suit filed by the Attorney General of the Federation, one wonders if this is a personal vendetta being carried out by the president in retaliation for abusing his administration like he opened during his last interview with Channels TV. Now, please join my guests and I to deliberate on this after the break. Don't go, we'll be right back.
On the facts, breaking news and in-depth interviews on a wide range of topics. facts.
Atlantic Television Network, home for in-depth reportage, facts, professionalism, all the news you need. Atlantic Television Network. Atlantic Television Network.
Atlantic Television Network, anchoring facts.
From the lines across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring all sport news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economy, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today. Only on ATN.
People into the country illegally. That is amazing. You human traffickers.
Good to have you back. You're still on Prime Time Advocacy this beautiful evening. And before we took a break, I told you that we will be looking at first Nnamdi Kanu, the fresh charge of terrorism that was slammed on him yesterday evening, barely 24 hours to his court appearance today. And beyond that, we're also going to look at, and our second story tonight is the Human Rights Watch, an issue of underage marriage, how it violates the rights of girls. I have a human rights, a Port Harcourt-based human rights lawyer and environmentalist, Gift Ababwe, who is here right now in our studio. Barrister Gift, good to have you on Primetime Advocacy. And fantastic that you're a human rights lawyer too.
Thank you.
So let's do this. Let's go quickly to the Nnamdi Kanu story.
Okay.
You know, at a time when the country is struggling with the issue of cessation in the east and of course in the west with the Sunday, the Boho and the Nnamdi Kanu IPOB and all the mayhem that this whole thing is creating in Nigeria today. When last year some Igbo leaders led by Mechim Badmuju traveled to Abuja in the company of other Igbo leaders to see the president to say, yes, we know this guy hasn't done well, a whole lot is wrong, but for the peace of this nation, for the safety of the Southeast, can you try to see how you can manage this situation and let him go? He said he would think about it or something like that. Now, a few weeks ago, during his interview with the Channels TV, the exclusive interview he had on the State of the Nation, one of the questions that he was asked is primarily on what his take on Nnamdi Kanu. He personalized that answer when he said when he was insulting, Nnamdi Kanu was insulting his administration, didn't he realize like a time like this will come? Here we are today. So to me, I watched it, I'm like, it's looking like a personal vendetta right now, like, oh, you did, I'm going to get you, now I have you, this is going to happen. Few hours to his appearance at the Justice yes, Binta's case, we saw fresh charges being thrown at him. Looking at it critically from the human rights side, considering what is going on in the Southeast, does it look like this president really care what happened to the Southeasterners?
Well, what happens to the Southeasterners, it's the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria has made provision for each and every segment of the Nigerian society. So what happens in the Southeast, what is happening with Nnamdi Kanu, it shouldn't be actually extended to say it is a problem of the Southeast. Nnamdi Kanu, of course, you say is agitating for secession and all of that. But you see, Nnamdi Kanu's case, it shouldn't be seen, but in law, Nnamdi Kanu's case is alleged to have committed terrorism charges. Nnamdi Kanu is alleged to have, committed terrorism charges. So Nnamdi Kanu personally is answerable to those charges. The Southeast is a region out of other regions in Nigeria. So he's facing a terrorism charge, which the federal government of Nigeria, barely 24 hours, just like you rightly noted, to the trial, they amended the charges and brought in fresh charges. Ordinarily, of course, coming from what the president had said in the previous, that exclusive interview he had with Channels Television, one would ordinarily say that, look, this has gone beyond law, has gone beyond criminal trial to venting personal vendetta of the president. For me, as a human rights lawyer, I would say that that statement from the president, in a way, violates the fair trial of Nnamdi Kanu. Nnamdi Kanu has a right to fair trial. Nnamdi Kanu is entitled to fair trial. And the fair trial is not really what the court will say, but what a reasonable man, judging from the facts and circumstances of this case, would think. The question is, if the president of the country comes up and tells you that, look, when Nnamdi Kanu was insulting my administration, what did he think will happen to him? And then barely 24 hours to the resumption of his trial, and then there are fresh charges. A reasonable person would want to think that this has gone beyond trial to persecution. So for me, the statement of the president and what happened 24 hours to Nnamdi Kanu's trial cannot be extricated. In the light of course, which is why you will notice that some days ago, IPOB, led by their lawyer Ifeanyi Ejiofor, wrote to the United States mission in Nigeria wrote to the UK, the United Kingdom's mission in Nigeria, that they should come and monitor the trial with a view to ensuring that their leader, or their self-acclaimed leader, gets a fair trial. Because they believe that these foreign nations will have their presence in court, will have a way of fostering on the court, and of course the Nigerian government, they need to do what is right. So, when I read that, they wrote to these missions, to United States and the United Kingdom's mission in Nigeria, that they should come and monitor the trial, and then what has happened 24 hours to the trial, I wasn't taken aback that there was a fresh charge. But then that is on looking at it just generally. To be more specific on point of law, I think it is the right, it is the right of every prosecution to review the facts of a case and then determine whether or not there is need to amend the charge. In this case, Nnamdi Kanu's charge, the charges leveled against him have been amended, so he is required to take a fresh plea. Today, what happened in court today was that they went to court, and of course they've changed. We all know now that they've changed the lead counsel. Yes, Michael Zekome is not the lead counsel. Michael Zekome, of course, told the court what is right in law. He told the court that, look, the charges against his client, that his client was just served the fresh charge barely 24 hours to today, and that they will need time to study the charges, the proof of evidence, with a view to informing his client on the proper plea to make. And of course, that Michael Zekome's argument is right in law, is quite tenable, is justifiable in the circumstances. You don't just serve someone a fresh charge and expect the person to make a plea without properly understanding the contents of what is to of the charge is to make a plea on.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Speaking of human rights and its abuses under this government, one critical factor that one cannot take away in this is also the right of the Southeasterners who are embroiled in this whole brouhaha, something that they didn't cause. As a matter of fact, the majority of the Southeasterners are not actually in agreement with what is going on. But today they are forced to be at the receiving end. Now, they are Nigerians too. This president is also their president. The Igbo states that have refused to speak up. I'm talking about the issue of a sit-at-home order. Because a few weeks ago, was it last week, we saw Powerful, the spokesperson for IPOB, coming out to say, oh, we are no longer part of sit-at-home order because criminal elements have taken over the process. And now, here we have him yesterday saying, we're going to have a sit-at-home order on the 18th and then not on the 19th and 20th, which are basically the days that the court is supposed to be presiding over the matter of Nnamdi Kanu. What about those who would want to do their businesses, who are being forced out of fear of violence? Like we saw in the news, there are issues of people's vehicles being shut down, people being pulled out from public transport, being beaten and all that. When would the rights of the Southeasterners, who didn't ask for this, when would their rights count?
Well, it's very unfortunate that the Southeasterners happen now to find themselves in what you call a quagmire, because they do not know whether they are to obey the Nigerian government or to obey the IPOB people. Now, Imapa, just like you rightly noted, had before now stated that they are no more part of the sit-at-home order and all that. But now, just recently, he came and said, look, there will only be sit-at-home on the 18th, which is today. You know, sit-at-home order for the IPOB is something, you know, it has a legal connotation. What they are doing is just, to them, they are enforcing civil disobedience, what you call civil disobedience in law, where you want to make a statement to the government that what they are doing is not good, and my take on the sit-at-home is that it has gone beyond civil disobedience to outright breach of the law. Because when they do this, their sit-at-home, like you rightly noted, they go about enforcing it, coercing people. I read a powerful statement, said, look, there will be a total lockdown in the Southeast. And for crying out loud, when you say total lockdown in the Southeast, where your right stops is where mine starts. You have a right to, okay, ventilate your grievance against the Nigerian government via I am sitting at home, Imapoafo and other IPOB members. But their right stops at that. Mine starts from going about my lawful activities. You do not coerce me. As I am assuming I was to be in the East, let's say Imo State, for instance. I have a right to go about my lawful activity. But what these people do is they try to make it a blanket arrangement. Everybody in the Southeast is sitting at home on a lockdown, which is not necessary, which is not justifiable in law. So, you know, I want to believe that the leaders in the Southeast would continue to prevail on these IPOB people to understand that, look, your engagement of forcing people to sit at home when they do not necessarily want to sit at home is not the best thing to do. If you want to really get the attention of the international community, get it in a lawful manner. If you go against the standards, the norms and standards of international law or international engagement, you go about forcing people to sit at home, forcing people to take decisions that they ordinarily wouldn't have taken, then you lose sympathy of the international community. And of course, you agree with me, you would quite agree with me, Vivian, that the sympathy of the international community is key to their struggle.
Absolutely.
So because they want fair trial, they want the international community to zoom their eyes on them. So how can they zoom their eye on them when they are doing the same thing that they accuse the Nigerian government of doing, breaching other people's rights? They accuse the Nigerian government of breaching the Kanu's rights, and they are breaching other people's rights. So two wrongs are actually meeting, and of course, two wrongs cannot make a right. We all know that.
All right, thank you very much. We're still having a conversation on the rights of the Southeasterners as we set our eyes on the issues surrounding Nnamdi Kanu and the way the Nigerian government is handling it. But we'll take a short break. The Nnamdi Kanu case, we cannot readily exhaust that. But the truth is, the rights of the Southeasterners are being abused every time this issue of lockdown takes place. People are being murdered. When will the Nigerian government speak up? When will the rights of the Southeasterners who are not in support of the Biafra or the IPOB agitation, when will their rights count? How long will the Nigerian government keep quiet? Why people are losing their economic life and, of course, risking their life? People are being killed. Some of people are being, endangered in one way or the other. When will the rights of the Southeasterners count? This is the question that is burning in the mind of the average Nigerian today. How long are we going to watch this go on and have the president not do anything? Well, David Mahe has finally spoken up to say that is not happening in Ebonyi State. Will the other Southeastern governors do something about it? We'll get to what as the story unfolds, but we'll take a short break. We'll come back. We're going to be looking at the issue of underage marriage in Nigeria. How much of a menace is this in today's Nigeria? We'll be right back. Good to have you back. You're still on Primetime Advocacy, and on the conversation tonight, we've been able to look at the rights of the Southeasterners and, of course, the approach, how the Nigerian government is approaching this. And we've been having this conversation with a human rights lawyer who is Barrister Gifts Ababu. Did I get that? Oh, Ababu. Okay, Ababu. Now we're going to look at a piece that the Human Rights Watch did yesterday, and they are talking about underage marriage, how it violates the rights of the girl child. Now, this issue is one that is still and will remain a national embarrassment to us in this 21st century, and that this is a fact. And this fact is boiled down to the fact that underage marriage is not completely abolished in today's Nigeria, and that's from our religious and our national life. Now, the Human Rights Watch made an explicit report on this subject. Now, how can Nigerians, and as individuals and collectively, of course, save the girl child from this horror? If with all the examples of women who are doing exploits today, one still see child marriage as a way out, then you will agree that all hands must be on deck to save the girl child, and that is where we are taking up this conversation this evening. So, Barrister Bob, we're good to have you back on Primetime Advocacy. Now, the girl child. In today's world, let's start from Nigeria. We have the Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. Of course, we cannot forget the late Dora Akunyili and the exploit she did while she was here. Yes. We have a lot of women. We have the Amina Mohammed, who is in the UN doing so well today. So from east to west, there are women who are showing the worth of a woman which is beyond marriage, especially underage marriage. Why do we still have this story? In fact, the Human Rights Watch did an explicit story on this, but because of the short time we have, we cannot delve into that. Let's look at some of the issues that are rising. Why is it that in today's Nigeria, there are still no law that literally protects the girl child across board? We still have people using religion, especially in the northern part of Nigeria, as an excuse to marry off underage children. And by underage, I mean under 16-year-old girls. Why do we still have that situation in today's Nigeria?
You see, Vivian, it's just very unfortunate that we have such a situation in Nigeria. Actually, as a matter of fact, the Nigerian Constitution, the error actually emanated from the Nigerian Constitution. In the Nigerian Constitution, there is no age, there is no definition of who is an adult. What you see under Section 25 of the 1999 Constitution as amended is who is a citizen. And there is no definition as to when the age of an adult starts. But of course, you know, INEC and pursuant to our electoral laws, you will see 18 years. But the 18 years does not define an adult for the purpose of marriage, just for the purposes of exercising your franchise. So that is one problem. And of course, we have a Child Rights Act, which is over 2 decades now, that was enacted under former President Olusegun Obasanjo.
That's not even for all the states in Nigeria.
Now, but the challenge we have now with the Child Rights Act is, of course, just like you may know, we are in a federation. Nigeria is a federation. So once an act is enacted at the National Assembly at the federal level, it is expected that before that national act takes effect or is operative in a state, it's expected that the State House of Assembly must have domesticated that act. Several states in Nigeria, more so from the southern Nigeria, has domesticated the Child Rights Act to be their child rights law. Rivers State, where we are, for instance, domesticated theirs, I think about 2004-05 thereabout. Yeah. So other states in the southern Nigeria. Now the core, even in the north central Nigeria, that is Midwest, former Midwest, a lot of the states there too have also domesticated theirs. But we have a problem in the northwestern region of the country, the Kano, the Katsina, all of that. Most of them did not domesticate it. As a matter of fact, they believe, because they believe their religion, they believe, some of the states believe that it is part of the Islamic religion to marry off a child below 18, that is 16 downwards. That there is no problem with that. And then that is where we have the problem. But then, I want to assure you, Vivian, that it is not entirely correct to say in law that there is no law generally that protects a child, that is somebody, a girl under 16, from getting married. The Constitution, by Section 34 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, provides for the right of every Nigerian to dignity of human person. Dignity of human person entails that you have a right to make a decision. You have a right to exercise your being. That is right of conscience, right to reject an offer. For instance, it's part of your right to dignity of human person. Like you have a dignity to say, I have the dignity to say, okay, you invited me over. I said, no, Vivian, look, I'm sorry, I can't come today. you respect the father. Oh, gift has said he cannot come. That is right to dignity. Now, what happens in northern Nigeria, some of the states, I wouldn't say northern Nigeria, some of the states that haven't domesticated the Child Rights Act and that still practices child marriage, is that a child is married off to a very older male person.
Old enough sometimes
old
to
enough,
be a grandfather.
A grandfather, you rightly say. Old enough to be sometimes a grandfather. The child is married off most times as a means of getting fund, raising fund for the family. Most times, you know, just for influence and what have you. The child has no consent, has no say in what happens. And what is the resultant effect of that? Most of these children go there, they don't know their left from their right. They go into the marriage. Marriage, you will rightly agree with me, Vivian, is a very complex issue. Marriage is not for the child. Marriage is for an adult. So the person going into a marriage is deemed to understand the complex nature of marriage. He seems to know that it has a lot of psychological effects. Most of these young girls, they hardly know anything about marriage. They just go in because they are coerced into it. As a matter of fact, Vivian, I read somewhere about, I read the story of a girl who was married off like that in Kano. This girl came back about 3 times. He said the girl came back from the marriage, and the parents forced her to go back to the marriage. But Vivian, I also want to also point out something. It may shock you to note that it's not just in the north. It's not the northwest alone or some of these Islamic Sharia states. Yeah. In Imo State, the report of Human Rights Watch showed that in Imo State, the issue of child marriage is still prevalent, because the culture of the Igbo, the culture of some of the people in Imo State is that getting pregnant out of wedlock is a shame to the family, so that many young girls, underage girls who get pregnant, are forced to marry outside of their wish, so that they don't bring shame to the family.
You see, I like to come in here quickly, because every time we talk about the issue of child marriage, we always spotlight the north because of religious issues and how all that pans out. But there is a critical issue, which is part of what you have raised now. One of those issues is that an underage child, whom you should be taking care of as a parent, gets pregnant, and then you take that underage child, like you said, force them into marriage, and the guy must marry him. This could be young people trying out sex for the first time, and then you end up pushing this child into marriage that she does not know anything about, and then her life gets to do a 360, and she sometimes loses direction and just ends up being a baby factory, as the case may be. And maybe the guy is not even properly educated. Now let's also come back to another thing that's just very critical around here. You see young children, young girls, teenage girls being sent into homemade prostitutes, where they are sent, like a girl child is having access to funds and material things that she cannot afford, that the family cannot afford. But somehow this thing for the family is silent, and then this thing's continued, and before you know, it's okay, go and marry Chief. Chief, he has money. Chief can take care of us. Her right is not considered. What she knows about marriage is not considered. What are the ways through which the rights of girls in this regard can be protected?
Okay, very fine. That's a very nice question, Vivian. Since we're in the southern Nigeria, and then we have a law, the Child Rights Act, that protects, that criminalizes child marriage. If you people have in the media, if you have any data, if you have any evidence of such scenario, report it to human rights organizations. I am a member of the Institute of Human Rights and Humanitarian Law. We are in Port Harcourt, Port Harcourt. Such incidents should be reported either to the police or to human rights organizations like we are, so that we take it up. Because we have a law, we have a child rights law in Rivers State, we have a child rights law in Rivers State, we have child rights law in Imo State. So you can also report that to the police, because since the Child Rights Act has been domesticated in Rivers State in a child rights law, it means that the police has the competence, has the power to investigate same, and if anybody is found culpable, either the parents of the child or the man who wants to marry the child, the underage person, the person can be investigated, And if found culpable, the person can be prosecuted.
You see, there is a challenge. I have a personal challenge.
What's the challenge?
I understand that, okay, people should report. There is a human rights lawyers, and there is a human rights organization, and all that. I give you typically a very short narrative. I think last year or 2020, I had a case of an alleged missing baby. Okay, and then it got to the Commissioner of Police Rivers. The then Commissioner of Police Rivers said that's how far I was able to push it at the point. And then on that case, we had a human rights person who actually stood there and was taking sides with the hospital when the case was still going through investigation. It was heartbreaking to watch, because some of the challenges that people have in this issue is that when people report this issue, the way and manner is being handled, sometimes the child is forced to go back to the same parents who are the ones who are forcing that child into early marriage or into circumstances that they are not readily comfortable with. So sometimes people keep quiet, like we can't readily talk about, if I say now this is what will happen. There are several of such cases. I'm not accusing you of anything. I know you're a human rights lawyer. So beyond reporting, are there safe measures like safe home where a child can run to? What are some of the things, the immediate thing a child can do if there is a child watching this who is presently going through such situation, or someone who knows a child that is?
Well, it's very unfortunate that we do not have such institutions of like safe homes, or a place where you can rightly say that the child can run to and is protected, and then his steps to enforcing his rights are taken at that time. But I am hoping that maybe later in the future we'll have such institutions or facilities in Nigeria and indeed in Rivers State. But like I did tell you earlier, any child who has an issue of molestation, any child who is forced to marry against her wish below the age that is allowed by law, if there is any such incident and anybody knows about it, the person should take steps to report to the Institute of Human Rights and Humanitarian Law, or report to the police. And we can assure you that if the matter is reported firstly to the police, and then the institute is aware, we'll detail our lawyers, and then we'll ensure that the investigation is thoroughly done, and that there are no compromises. We'll ensure that justice is served, because really it's very important. What you see, the issue of underage marriage shouldn't be treated with levity by any society who cares for the future of our citizens, who cares for law and order. Because most of these children, when they marry under that age, they are not sufficiently exposed to what marriage is. And so they don't know how to parent. They don't understand.
Because they are kids themselves.
They are kids themselves. They don't understand. So oftentimes, most of these problems we have in the society, these kidnappers, cultists, armed robbers, and all of that, a lot of them come from this kind of homes. Broken homes, homes without direction, homes with, these kind of things. So that is why we call on the Rivers State government, call on the Nigerian government to ensure that the issue of underage marriage is fought drastically, because it contributes to the menace of what we have as cultists, kidnappers, armed robbers, and what have you. Because once these people come up, they are not properly trained. Firstly, they don't have funds, oftentimes, because it's an arrangement of marriage this person, and tomorrow there's no care. The man oftentimes doesn't respect the girl, because they just treat the girl as one rag. And the girl doesn't have the sufficient mental balance in such abusive marriage to raise responsible people for the society. So it's a major problem. It is Nigeria should take it as a major problem and treat it as such. Otherwise, we are headed for a problem in Nigeria.
All right, thank you so much. Still on the conversation of the rights of the girl child, especially when it comes to underage marriage. One of the issues that we see today is the feminist groups across the world fighting for the rights of the girl child. Now, how much of their fights do you think can go a long way to impact the issue of underage marriage? For instance, we just talked about there are no safe homes in Port Harcourt that we can say, okay, when a girl child that we know of anyway, maybe in Rabo that we know of,
that may be.
When a child is abused, when a girl child that is being abused by your father, for instance, or your parents are forcing you to marriage, this is the number to call, this is where to go to, and all that. FIDA is trying You and your team are trying. However, how much of these independent individual organizations or independent organization, as the case may be, like the feminist group or other women group, how much can they do? What are some of the steps that they can begin to take to ensure that the issue of underage marriage becomes history in Nigeria? As it is, it's still a national embarrassment.
Oh yeah, thank you for the question, Vivian. My suggestion is that FIDA, that has been very prominent in advocating the rights of the girl child and of course women in general, they should take a further step. They should ensure that they make the advocacy more loud. They should, they should make the advocacy to be more visible, and then they should ensure that they go to the rural communities, because most of these things actually take place more in the rural communities, where beyond that's without a spotlight of the state apparatus. So they should ensure that they do thorough investigation. They send out their people to go to rural communities to check, and then once there is a verified case of child abuse in the context of child marriage, they should ensure that there are no compromises in the investigation, there are no compromises in the trial, and that if at the end of the day the person there is a good case, they should ensure that there is diligent prosecution, so that will serve as deterrent to other people who take such steps. Since luckily in Rivers State we have a child right law that protects the child from underage marriage. So FIDA and other feminist groups should ensure that the advocacy is taken to a higher level, and then that they are focused enough to ensure that where they have cases of violations, that it is well treated without compromises.
All right, quickly before we run out on this conversation this evening, one of the critical factors in underage marriage is the absence of education for the girl child. And of course, with how expensive education is today, when we say quality education, not the kind that will have government providing across board, that is nothing to write home about most of the time. Now, how much can awareness on this issue, and of course education of the girl child, how far can it be should it be prioritized to ensure that when the parents are educated, they know exactly that their girl child is not just a commodity that brings in income for them, but a human being that deserves the right to become whatever they wish to be. So how much role do you think education can play in ensuring that these such excesses are curbed?
Yeah, yes, education would actually go a long way in ensuring that the girl child is empowered to know her rights, is empowered to know that she can actually be everything even without marriage. That marriage is not a prize. Because all of these things, what you see happening with the underage marriage, it has a cultural nuance. It has a traditional nuance, a cultural nuance. They thinking that, oh, the girl child is not important, the male child is more important. Some of these things, these are where some of these issues come up from. So the girl child education should be prioritized. The girl child should be made to understand that she matters. The girl child should be made to understand that, look, your education should be a central goal. The girl child should be trained adequately, not just no, this is just a commodity for money. This will give us bride price. No, if for instance I'm a parent and I happen to have only female children, I should ensure that I give them quality education. And that would ensure that that will go a long way in ensuring that this issue of underage marriage is curtailed.
Now, speaking of education, and of course, what role do you think civil society organizations, the media, as a matter of fact, can play? What are some of the things you can suggest as a human rights lawyer that should be done, corporate societies and all that? Because you remember that funding the education is money. Sometimes these parents allow their children into underage marriage because they cannot afford to readily train them. So they see them as a commodity, as a tool to achieve an aim, maybe to train the male child. So how much support do you think the civil society organization, corporate organization can begin to render to this, in this regard to ensure that the issue of underage marriage becomes history?
Well, for the civil society organizations, I think my take is that they should actually raise awareness of the danger of not sufficiently training the girl child. And then that awareness should be taken to the doorsteps of corporate organizations, and then corporate organizations should take it as a topmost corporate social responsibility, so that the girl child is offered enough scholarship opportunities to be able to access quality education, because most of the parents actually do not have the funds to train their children, let alone the girl child in Nigeria that is often pushed backwards. So if they are offered, if the girl child is actually singled out and offered scholarship by corporate organizations as part of their corporate social responsibilities, it will actually go a long way in ensuring that the girl child is educationally empowered, and tomorrow will be a voice. And then when the men see that, look, women are actually doing well, they can do well, and the saying, what a man can do, a woman can do well, once that starts gaining traction in Nigerian society, the issue of the rights of the girl child would have been very pronounced by then.
All right, thank you so much, Barrister Gift Abwabwe. We appreciate your time on the show, and thank you for also coming at such a quick notice.
Thank you so much
for coming to have you here. All right, thank you so much. Now, this is how far we can go on the show. Thanks for joining us. I am Vivian Douglas. You can follow us on our social media handles. Facebook and YouTube is at Atlantic Television Network. Instagram is at Atlantic TV Network. Don't forget, peace and unity are the pathway to progress. Thank you.